Hi you guys, Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another YouTube Q&A video of the week. If you're new to the channel, then I always encourage you to go to my website, which is themodernshaman.net. There are a lot of wonderful resources there for you if you'd like personal one-on-one sessions with me, or if you'd like to train and learn more about your psychic skills and how to develop those, as well as how to create a career out of your spiritual and psychic abilities, whether they be how to manipulate and do energy work. There's a just wide variety of modalities in when it comes to really just being you and sharing that with the world. There's a lot of programs that I offer, and I would love for y'all to check out the website. Always kind of come back to that. So also, I want to say, if you have never sent in a question, I would love to hear from you. There are quite a few of you that have been tried and true and on this channel for a long time, and you comment or you send feedback. I would love to hear questions from you. It's a beautiful blessing to me in shared energy. So you do that also by going to the website, the contact form, and then typing in your question, and then just making a note on there that it's for the YouTube channel questions. All right, and here's the question for today. Very simply put, it says, Rachel, I love your channel. Thank you so much for putting everything out there. I just would like to know, point blank, how do I become more intuitive? So, simple enough. How do I become more intuitive? You know, I'll kind of tell you how I teach it because I teach psychic development. As you all know, I have the master class teaching curriculum that I just mentioned. And so I will tell you how I teach it in the way that I like to teach it. And really that just comes from my belief in what it is. And first and foremost, the intuition is something that everyone has within them. It is our spiritual communication. It's the essence of the way our soul communicates, okay? And it is non-physical communication. And so this type of communication, or this type of, when I say communication, I think you think of one thing to another, which is true, but it's a language unto itself. It's like our soul's language. And so the first thing that I would say in terms of becoming more intuitive is to get to know your soul. And the way I love to teach this is through remembering who you are, remembering how you feel close to God or spirit or the universe or the magic of the world, or things that make you have that state of awe, or mystical experiences where you swear something was communicating with you, when you had something happen that you just can't explain in our regular human 3D experiences, something from the beyond. And we kind of dig that up. Sometimes it takes a little remembering. Oftentimes these experiences get devalidated by those around us if we're young, or we just mitigate their importance and say it's not that big of a deal, or yeah, I thought maybe that would happen, but I don't really honor it or respect it. And essentially the energy itself becomes less and less important to us. And so the first step of becoming more intuitive is recognizing your own intuition, recognizing the spirit and the soul that is within you, and how it already has connections to the non-physical realm, because everyone has them. Like I said, this is your soul language. This is you can't separate it from you being spirit before your body. It's in there. We just cover it over with a lot of layers. So the first step is uncovering those layers. And I would have some kind of interrogating questions to get in there and think about and start to excavate memories of the ways that you have felt very, very profoundly impacted by spirit, whether it may be through music, feeling that you're in an environment where everyone was singing and you were just it just rocked your freaking soul. You could feel it so deeply in your soul. Or maybe you were walking in nature and you just feel so much peace, or as if the trees could speak to you. Or maybe it's in art or the beauty of the sunset, and you just feel like there is something beyond when you consider the sky or the stars, and there's this unspoken connection that you feel in your soul. Or maybe it is dreams. Maybe you've always had mystical dreams, or dreams that felt like they had profound depth to them. They weren't just chaotic noise from the day, or you ate a bad burrito. There was something deeper in the dreams, and you just know it. You don't know why you know it, but you just know it. Or maybe it was through poetry, mystical writings, or inspiring history of those that have lived lives of courage and honor that make you feel in your soul that spirit is connecting you to that person. Maybe it's even just watching a movie, a video, and you feel that sense of, I know that time period. I know that life, as if I've had that life. Not just I get into the movie, it's deeper. That's where our soul begins speaking. And so I would interrogate with questions and start looking back at your life. This is not the type of education where you just learn terms. It's an excavation of what's already inside of you. Learning the sacred intuitive arts is almost like teaching backwards. It's the reversal of traditional academia and the way that we were brought up to learn from the outside in. When you get better at your intuition, or you learn to recognize it and honor your sacred intuitive aspects, it is from the inside out. So we have to first flip our idea of education, and essentially that's a lot of deductive questioning, right? Like the Socratic method. We go kind of backwards and we begin looking at your own life. It's all personal. It can't be about anybody else. It can't be about the way I do it. It can't be about the way some other teacher taught you to do it. It's got to be about you and you recognizing. And then when you recognize it, when you find that, yeah, that did mean something to me. Yeah, I did have that dream and then it came true. Yeah, I did feel some strange energy when I walked on that land. I knew something had happened before I found out that that was where there were bloodshed or a war happened or an old graveyard. Recognizing these things for yourself. When you do recognize it, the next step that I teach is the validation. This is the honoring. This is where we hold these things as holy or sacred, or in the shamanic community, it really in a lot of religious communities over many years. Then we move into ceremony, where we give prayer, or we give thanks, or we give a blessing, or we give an honoring to that moment, that place, that memory, that connection. This moves the reverence energy within us, and we essentially start retraining our neurological function to pay attention to our intuition. We have to kind of retrain that, because when we are young or we're brought up in our traditional societies, most of them don't validate dreams. They don't validate intuition. They don't validate feelings or vibes or strange mystical experiences. They kind of negate them, or kind of just, oh, that's just, you have an imaginary friend, or they just kind of downplay them. And the energy essentially gets neutered, literally. It cuts the power out of it. And so when we begin to want to strengthen our intuition, we have to retrain our emotional intelligence and our mental intelligence that those things are sacred. And so in doing so, that retrains the mind to elevate the importance of it. And when things are important, we remember them. We remember birthdays. We remember big events in our life. That was important. That made a difference in my life. When that person said that, or da-da-da-da. And so essentially we're retraining when we validate that I had a powerful moment there, that was important to me in my life. So the first part is the remembering and the interrogating, kind of the excavating questions that dig up how you already have had experiences and currently feel connected to source energy. Then it's the validation of that. Honor it, provide ceremony around it, give blessings, pray and say thank you, thank you, and mean it. Get in that sincere space of the heart. Again, retraining the mental intelligence, the emotional intelligence, that this is important. And then what happens is, after a while in the future, your mind and your heart already know to recognize when you get intuitive hits in the future, or vibes, or awareness, or dreams. It already will start to automatically respond as, this is important. Notice it. Slow down. Contemplate the message here. Open up to communication in other realms. Step through and be aware of the portal energy, or the change in this spatial awareness that we're in this liminal space, this sacred space. So it shifts by you elevating the importance of it. And then in the future, it will already happen almost like an automatic response because you have elevated it yourself. The last piece of advice that I would give you in terms of strengthening your intuition is a little bit academic, meaning it has practice to it. And that is to become aware of the language of the psychic gifts, right? If you are familiar with the Bible, or you grew up in the Bible Belt like I did, there are the spiritual gifts, right? Prophecy is named as one of the spiritual gifts. Also, the interpretation of prophecy. Some people get dreams, they don't know what it means. They have the prophetic dreams, but they're not interpreters yet. But there's also identified psychic senses, and they were identified. And when I teach kind of the academic lectures around learning that, it is in our kind of more scientific study of parapsychology, which is the psychology of all of the paranormal activity that happens. There's a ton of study that's been done out there, and a lot of information. I mean, just all over the place, whether it's kinesthetic and, moving things with your mind, or, just there's a ton of study around it. Remote viewing, and it's just all out there. It's not at all strange. It has been studied in scientific, very rigorous study for a long time. But anyways, I would encourage you to learn about each of the psychic senses so that you are familiar with what they are, like how to identify them. Because for me, I have been me, like you have been you, since you were born, and even before you were born, right? You come in a lot of times very connected, but we don't have a language of how to explain that, the interpretation of such. And this is where a lot of the strengthening of the muscle comes from, is kind of gaining a alignment with how to interpret what it is that we're seeing, the symbols that we're getting, the repetitive numbers, the seeing auras or colors, or the sensations and how they affect certain areas of the body, but not areas of the body. And it's a language in itself. And so I would encourage you to study. I'll go through a couple of those really quickly with you, but essentially the traditional psychic senses that were identified and kind of spelled out for us are, first, claircognizance, and this is just the knowing, right? Like, I just know something is going to happen. I just have a feeling about this. I just know. It is the most dominant psychic sense out of all of them, but it's the least verifiable. Like, you can't necessarily have any proof of it because you just know it. You don't see anything with it. You don't hear any audible voice of dictation. It's just the knowing. Then there is clairvoyance, which is the visuals, getting visual images. And this happens through our imagination space, our mental space. Sometimes we don't even see images. We just think the images. It's like when someone's talking and they're talking about their dog, you're kind of thinking about their dog. or you're seeing an image of the dog. You're not even realizing that you're actually seeing a visual. And if you train your internal vision, you can be talking to someone, eyes open, and at the same time have a very precise visual of what their dog looks like, the collar, and you can kind of zoom in, zoom out. You can practice this use of your internal vision at the same time of using your 3D vision. And this is just multidimensional vision, right? The same is true of the next psychic sense, which is clairaudience. Clairaudience is the hearing, and this is our internal ear. This is where we say our conscience speaks to us, or we hear our higher voice, or we hear essentially guidance of higher wisdom. And this is also connection through mediumship. Speaking to those that are not in our 3D realm, speaking of our past loved ones, that we still hear the voice of our grandmother that meant so much to us. This is literal multidimensional communication. Oftentimes, when it's identified as clairaudient, again, you can be speaking and having a conversation and be hearing guidance all the time about spirit speaking over that. Somebody's talking about some relationship they're all excited about, and you just hear it's not going to work out, or this person is not someone to be trusted. You're getting these messages. And this is the psychic sense of clairaudience. This can also be developed and strengthened, and again, like a muscle, you can learn techniques that I teach of how to mute the voices, how to turn the sound up, how to turn it down, how to pan out, hear multiple voices, how to strengthen them into a line, or essentially speaking one voice at a time if you're hearing multiples. There's a lot of dynamic and invitation only, or navigational flow with that you can get very good at in terms of specifics. Going to certain geolocations and listening there. Again, it's not bound by space or time, dimensionality, anything. Past, forward, or any direction. And then, so claircognizance, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience is the next big one. Clairsentience is those of you that are empathic, right? This is feeling non-physical energy through the sensations of your body and the emotional reaction of the body. So this is when you feel vibes when you're in a particular area or around a certain person. This also has a sense of cellular mimicry where your cells begin to mirror, and this is called mirror neurons, where they find that we begin to mirror neurologically, or in the neurons of our body, in our cells, what's happening in the other person. And so you'll begin to feel sensations that they're experiencing, or you can do it in terms of future. When someone's talking about the future, you'll begin to get a tight squeeze in your gut. They're talking about a surgery they're going into, you get a sharp pain in your head. A lot of times we teach ourselves not to pay attention to this, just for the functionality of living a human life, or we don't need that information in our immediate sense, and so we've kind of devalidated it. Again, noticing if you get these types of hits and you're highly clairsentient, in the psychiatric community it's also called highly sensitive person, HSP, and it's way more widely known now. That is the psychic sense of clairsentience, and the emotional impact also as the empath, feeling the emotions and not having a sense of filtering whose emotions are what, or when you're in a clouded and crowded. By clouded, I mean like energetically cloudy, and then a crowded meaning a lot of physical people or physical activity going on. You may be picking up a lot of the emotional energy and discharge that's going on in that area. All of that is the psychic sense of clairsentience. And then there's clairgustance and claircentrist. Clairgustance is the taste. So you would taste without really eating anything, or not the physical sensation of taste, but it's similar to mental taste. Like if someone was to talk about your grandmother's cookies or your favorite recipe, and it's almost like you can taste it. Your taste buds may even salivate. It's a sensational aspect, and a lot of times this happens with those that are really able to do medical intuition and reading. They'll taste certain disease or bitterness or mucus or bile, or they get different reactions to different ailments within the body or different organs that are not working. And then there's the psychic sense of claircentrist, scent. And this is your olfactic. So this is smelling things that are not in the physical realm. Oftentimes this is hard to ignore. And if you have this psychic sense, You'll be like smelling cigarettes and no one in the room is smoking. Or you'll smell your grandfather's pipe that he used to smoke when he is around and wanting to communicate with you. Or flowers, if it's a good smell. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But those are the traditional identified psychic senses of ways that we are able to pick up on cosmic information that's happening in the web that we are not able to see in our visual spectrum or here in our current auditory spectrum, but that are there. They can measure these frequencies or light waves and know that there is something there. They have, like I said, in parapsychology, they've measured when someone is saying they're hearing clairaudient, they'll measure it and get frequencies, or they'll be able to tape it based on energy recorders, not necessarily auditory recorders, but they can record via energy now. There's so much information out there that has been studied in technical ways about this. So learning about that. And then once you identify, like, oh yeah, that's me. I have that psychic gift. I have that psychic gift. I have that psychic gift. Now you have a familiar, agreed upon language in order to navigate and express what it is that you're receiving. Whether it is a premonition, something that's going to happen in the future, or a past life vision, or mediumship, you're kind of familiar with the lingo enough to be able to interpret what it is that you're receiving. So that's the last piece of advice I would give you. And then, well, maybe it's not the last. So here's the last. Practice it. Get into, and I go through these with my modules in the masterclass, but essentially get into meditative states and listen if you're clairaudient for the messages. Get into meditative states and watch and draw or write down what it is you're seeing. Get into a meditative state and feel and notice what emotional response you're getting through certain thoughts and memories. So train up the muscle, use it. And all of those things, recognizing how spirit already speaks to you, validating it so that you're retraining the mind to give it a level of importance that will listen in the future, and then educating a sense of awareness of how to interpret and language what it is that you're receiving. All of those things will strengthen your intuition. And really just that number one, desire. If it's your desire to strengthen it, you'll strengthen it. If you're serious about doing a sense of inquiry, then spirit will always honor that. They always honor with the same level of energetic response to that in which we give it. So if we are seeking and we really want to know and we are heartfelt, spirit will answer that in the same energy. It's always an energetic equivalent. So get your heart in it, mean it, seek it, and I'm hearing like if you build it, it will come. You know, there's this sense of truly seeking with your heart, and spirit will show up energetically in a way that feels strengthening to you. And of course, I shouldn't let this video go without saying, if you really want to learn more, take my masterclass. Or take the individual modules. You don't have to take the whole masterclass if that's too much of a commitment for you. You can take individual modules of the psychic sense that you truly want to develop and strengthen. And then I would just say keep going from there. Much love. I'll be back here next week with another video. Blessings.